Shalom, everybody.
Shalom. Shalom.
So we are about to start chapter 8 of Tanya. So let's see where are we holding? What did we discuss last time? So the story you said was impressive, very deep, profound. But besides the story was illustrating something, right? So what exactly are we discussing? And do we have any questions regarding what we discussed last time?
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, when someone does something spiritual and it has physical consequences, it kind of stays here. Like it's not so easy to get rid of it. And even if you do teshuvah, it's still kind of there. It's very difficult for it to disappear. What can we do about other people's spiritual errors? Like, how do we, like, if our goal is to, like, fix the world to a certain extent, can we do anything about someone else's errors?
Great question. Okay, so we let me first start with overview. We learned about the spiritual sources of things. That there are like two general areas in the upper realms: the side of holiness, Sitra de Kedusha, and the other side, Sitra Ochra, created to give us freedom of choice. So we should have choice. So whatever is connected with prohibitions comes from there. It's they have the roots, the souls from that area. There are three levels in it: three completely impure klipot, worlds of impurity, and one klipas naga, the shining shell, shining klipa, which is includes a mixture of good and bad. So things which are not prohibited come from this, the former one. Those which are prohibited, they come from those three. Now, whatever comes from klipas naga, which are not prohibited, as we said, not necessarily it's good. It depends. We can make them good or bad. So this thing has a potential to be included in holiness, to serve its purpose, or we can connect it to the other side. Instead of ascending and elevating it, it descends into the klipas, into the impurity. But since it comes from that area and it's not prohibited, it could be fixed by tshuva, by repenting, learning lessons, improving the actions. So the next proper action can actually not only elevate that substance which the action applied to, but also elevate those sparks which were drawn into the impurity. But there are still traces of, once mistake is done, certain effect could be fixed, could be improved, could be erased, but some traces are still left. It's even worse with violating the prohibitions, because it's impossible to elevate anything which comes from the worlds of impurity, which are prohibited. That's the meaning of the word osur, prohibited. Osur means incarcerated, grabbed, anchored in that impurity, so it cannot be elevated by the direct action. So the consequence is even worse. The tshuva could help a person to be forgiven, but the effect of it, the spiritual effect, cannot be fixed unless the person does such a transforming tshuva that he becomes the different person. And since what triggered this process of self-transformation? that sin, that mistake. So since looking at the end result, you can say that this mistake actually could be counted as a merit, because of it only retroactively. But the worst situation when there is the physical result of that, not just some spiritual bad effect being materialized, like with the forbidden intimacy, which results in the birth of a child. Then nothing could be fixed in that way. It cannot be elevated. It's already anchored in the material reality. But the question is, okay, in different situations, on different levels, we can purify, elevate, fix the damage, more or less, by doing tshuva, learning lessons, transforming ourselves. What about the other people's mistakes? Simply speaking, that's their business. That's very simple. I'm simplifying. Of course, your first responsibility is to take care of yourself, to improve yourself, to fix yourself. But on the other hand, it's written that we are all connected, and we all are each other guarantors. This is very strong term, guarantors. Doesn't mean that I'll be punished for somebody else's sins, has v'shalom, but his actions bring the result not only to him, but to us as Jewish nation in a whole. So in some sense, I could be affected by somebody's mistakes. So what about fixing the mistakes? One of the examples, and on the positive effect, we discussed last time when we were talking about the vidui prayer, which we say daily, confession, so to speak. It's not the confession in the sense like other cultures use, but we said that verbal confession, verbal admittance of the mistake, is a necessary part of tshuva, of process of tshuva, because the sin consists of the physical part, the action, and the pleasure or whatever benefit derived from it, which creates body and soul of some spiritual entity, demon, which acts as an accuser. So to erase it, you need to not only to the bitter feelings, to kill the soul of it, but also some actions, at least on a verbal level. And when we say this confession, the vidui, we say it in plural, not just for yourself, but like on behalf of everyone.
Right.
And you say very general expressions, mentioning things which you not only never did, but probably wouldn't even begin thinking about such a things. And besides it being all acronyms for the letters of Holy Alphabet, it's also bears the meaning that we do it, at least to some extent, on behalf of other brothers and sisters with whom we are connected and are responsible for. There is a connection. So there is a Rabbi in one of the sikhs discussing the subject of when Yosef and Binyamin met after many years of being apart, they hugged each other and they cried. And the sages of Talmud say that it was kind of prophetic tears. Not only they cried out of shock of such a happy occasion after so many years. But it was prophetic crying about, one was crying about the future temples which will be built in the lot of his brother and will be destroyed, and vice versa. So Rabbi was asking simple question, why they were crying about each other's, not about themselves, their own lot, so to speak. And the answer is that when it's your problem, then don't cry. Then crying actually distracting and might be non-productive. I mean, if it's part of tshuva, if you repent, good. But the repent should bring to the actions. And very often, when we realize that something bad is done and a mistake is done, we feel bad, we become sad, and that sadness puts a check mark in our tshuva diary, so to speak. It's done. So just by, okay, I cried. That's it, next. So sometimes bitterness and crying distracts us from doing, and that what should be the main thing. Even on behalf of under-crying, so to speak. It's better not to cry enough, but to do more rather than vice versa. So better don't cry, just do. Fix the problem. But when it comes to somebody's problem, only he can do something to fix it. But you as his brother should feel bad for him, for his mistake, and should cry. Meaning, should be praying for his improvement. So there is a way to influence it. And I always remember the story I was told about one old chassid in Moscow who was always wearing not just yarmulke. Nobody was wearing yarmulkes outside during the Soviet time, but some caps, whatever. But he was wearing always yarmulke and a hat. Never left house without two. And they asked him, why you're so meticulous about it. He felt this way. He said, if I won't be strict or maybe super strict, another Jew maybe won't come to the shul on Yom Kippur. You see, when we care about ourselves, and that's our primary responsibility, it helps not only to us to be stronger and behave properly. It fortifies us as a Jewish nation in a whole, and helps other Jews. It works similarly on the smaller scales and on the family level and community level. So when you are here on time for davening, it helps other Jews also not to miss it.
They're really good at that. They're really good at that.
Of course.
Usually for Sundays, David's here, Shabbos day.
L'chaim for that.
Rabbi, is it a capital punishment not to wear tzitzis or not to pray?
Capital punishment?
In Batan Shema, and we say to Hashem, if we put a defect in your great name, Yud-K, and then we say the name, and then for not wearing tefillin, for not wearing tzitzis, for not
No, it's
praying,
not. It's not on the literal level.
not on the literal.
It creates the spiritual damage, similar to, so to speak, but not on literal level. But it gives you some food for thought. Yeah? Okay, so now let's let's start the chapter 8.
Right.
Okay. So chapter 8. ואית זו יזומח ליססוריס. שלכך נכראים בשם איסור, מפני שאף מי שאוכל מאכל איסור. בלא הידע, לשם שמיים. לעבוד השם בכרך אכילה ההיא, וגם פועל ויעשה כן. וקורא ויספל בכרך אכילה ההיא, אין החיל שבו אוילה ומסלבשס, בטבעס התיר התפילה כמו ההיתר. There is an additional aspect in the matter of forbidden foods. Okay, so we discussed previously that whatever is permitted can be elevated. Can be elevated. Not necessary, it depends how we approach using this stuff, including eating kosher food. If we eat with blessing and with understanding what we need it for, to fulfill our mission, then it will be elevated. If just to fill up the stomach, in the best case scenario, then it's not being elevated, being grabbed, sucked into the realms of other side, the impurity. With whatever is prohibited, you cannot elevate. Now,
What if you're eating delicious?
there is addition. Well, yes.
What if you're eating delicious tasting food, just so you can be like, "Wow, God created great tasting food." Like,
If
it's-
the- if
you're
that-
just indulging in like some.
If that was
gourmet.
if that was the purpose, then I mean,
Like, it's a wonder of the world.
it's a good idea of spiritual exercise. Let me how to say, literally fill myself with the understanding of greatness of the Creator
Yeah.
who created this steak. I mean,
Like,
sounds
I'm on a Michelin star restaurant
sounds very genuine,
to think that.
very sincere. Okay, maybe, but if the primary reason is to fill up the stomach and the side effect is also good feeling about the Creator who gave you this opportunity, then probably the effect will be combined. Some positive with some negative. So what we said, it's a general principle applied to everything which is either permitted or prohibited. There is another aspect, additional aspect with the foods, specifically foods. The reason they are called isur, chained as we say it, grabbed, incarcerated, is that even in the case, so we said that we already mentioned this idea, right? To explain that it cannot be elevated because it's isur. But it could be some tricky situation that even in the case if one who has unwittingly eaten a forbidden food, intending it to give him strength to serve God. So the proper intention, right? How we should approach eating the kosher food. The only problem is the food is not kosher, but the person doesn't know that. Even in the case he doesn't know that, so there is no intentional consumption of forbidden food, and his kavana, intention, approach, is great, but since it's still anchored in the realms of tuma, it cannot be elevated because it's chained. In forbidden food, intending to give him strength to serve God by the energy of it. And he has, moreover, actually carried out his intention, because the calories are calories. It's physics. Having both studied and prayed with the energy of that food, nevertheless, the vitality contained therein, we're not talking about calories and pounds. That stays. But that was elevated, accumulated rather, but vitality, that divine sparks, which are the essential vitality contained therein, does not ascend. So there's a big difference between consumed calories and the biomass, proteins, whatever, and those sparks which we call vitality, they could be ascended through using these calories and spending them on proper actions. But if these calories are derived from forbidden food, then the action's accomplished. Certain check marks could be done, but those sparks which were supposed to be elevated from the food which you use to serve God, they remain in the realms of Tuma and are not elevated because it's Isur. They cannot be teared off.
They're chained.
They chained. Does not ascend and become clothed in the worlds of Torah or prayer, as in the case of permitted foods. כמו ההתר, מפני איסור בידי הסטרא אחרא משלוש קליפות הטמאוס. By reason of its being held captive in the power of the sitra ochra of the three unclean klipot. With all the efforts, with all the good intentions, if the source of this energy is impure, these sparks cannot be elevated. ואפילו הוא איסור דרבנן, שחמורים דברי סופרים יאסר מדברי תורה, holy. This is so even when the prohibition is a rabbinic enactment, for the words of scribes are even more stringent. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yeah. Yep.
Than the words of the Torah and so forth. Opposite to the common approach that if it's not the Urais, if it's not from the script, then it's less urgent, so to speak, less important. The Torah gives to the sages not just right, the responsibility, which responsibility includes both rights and obligation to do so in the certain situations, to impose additional boundaries within the law, and those boundaries are not less important than the laws of the Torah. Spiritually speaking, Kabbalistically speaking, first of all, there is one reason that violating this, the person commits double violation of that particular decree and the commandment of the Torah to follow the rabbinical laws. That's special instruction. But also, according to Kabbalah, those additional decrees, laws introduced by our sages through the generations, they actually reveal the deeper, more loftier aspects of divine will. And following them kind of brings more pleasure, more sophisticated pleasure to the Creator when we're following them. So it's not less important. I mean, when we're talking about the responsibilities of punishments and so on, then for sure it's different. But essentially, those laws are for sure not less important than the biblical decrees. Another thing should be added, I think, to that paragraph. The idea is understood, right? It's clear. But one second, let me first, maybe it will answer it. Before asking the question, let me add something to it. We brought the specific example. The person using the energy derived from the food, which is not kosher, but he didn't know it's not kosher.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. I mean, there's nothing for him to be punished. There is a need for an atonement, because unintentional sin does indicates some inner flow, and therefore there was special sacrifice, individual sacrifice in the temple for unintentional sins. If you need sacrifice, means you need atonement. It means there is something to be fixed inside. It's not the same as with intentional ones, but still there is a problem. The problem even kind of deeper. But this is not the point. It cannot be elevated with all the intentions because it's chained, like you said, to the realms of impurity. But this is absolutely not the same when the person has no other choice but, let's say, he's starving. He's in a desert, no food, only
Lizard.
whatever. Yes.
A lizard.
Just in the middle of Sahara Desert.
The newest location.
The only item is a bacon
desert,
cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger, pork.
But in the desert,
Then,
insects and
if you,
lizards.
yeah, thank you for describing the menu of that McDonald's.
If he's lucky.
But the point is, if
He's lucky.
if it's the only way to save his life, then he must do it.
Yes.
He must do it to save his life, and therefore, in that situation, it's not isur anymore. It's not prohibited. You see, it's exactly. Not only it's prohibited, but since saving lives is more important, we allow him. In that situation, it becomes completely kosher. Meaning that it's not it's not chained anymore. So in that situation, it's the same like with the permitted food.
But the klipa itself is not chained as well? Like, how does that just happen?
I don't know how technically it happens.
The need kind of unlocks.
I don't know how this spiritual capillary is being switched from tier 3 impure klippas to the tier 1 klippas nog. I don't know how it's being done technically, but essentially
So it's still klipas naga. It's not
it becomes klippas naga.
what you transform.
It used to be impure klippa.
Klipas naga can be brought to the holy
But
side.
if it's facing the starving Jew who can save his life only by consuming it, it becomes klippas naga.
A small question about that. Technically, if he's saving his life, if that really is the case, where if he doesn't eat this, he's going to die, then isn't it by default already holy? It's not even in klipas noga, because if he doesn't eat it, then the alternative is that he dies. Even if he doesn't do it to study Torah or like with that intention, if he's doing it to save his life, not to fill his stomach.
You're right, but maybe we
I guess still you
holy.
could
It's
still
like
do it.
it's on both sides.
Yeah. I don't know, whatever.
What if he eats it but doesn't make a brownie?
You know what?
It's not a very
Because
full
since he still has freedom of choice, Silk may think while saving his life, he may think, these goyim, they have really good food,
Butter-based
which partially ruins the whole
yes.
the whole elevation of these sparks. You know?
So off topic though. Then
You know, there is a joke. We'll get to off topic just in 2 minutes about a Jew and the Russian officer traveling in the same train. No train. What do you call it? The compartment. The compartment in the car.
Yeah, sure. The room.
Inside compartment. Yes. So they both take their food. Jew has something very simple, and the officer takes, the sandwiches with bacon and so on, and looks to the Jew with this kind of compassion, understanding that he cannot eat it, the ham and so on. And finally, they're just drinking tea, and he takes the bottle of good wine, and he said, "You really don't. You really cannot take it. No, only only when my life is endangered. And, okay, so the guy takes out the gun, says, drink it. Says, okay. And he says, I really apologize. Please forgive me. Okay, I forgive you. But I still feel, I still upset that you didn't take gun before, earlier. Yeah, let's go to the next off topic. Yosef, what did you want to ask?
That story kind of pulled away my.
Stupid joke, huh?
Yeah, so if that's the case, in fact, it's not only like it's just mutter, but it's actually kosher. There's instances of like Jews who were told eat this or die, and then their Messiah's Nefesh just let themselves be killed. Is that a bad thing that they did?
It's very different. No, it's because it's you're bringing the situation which is very complicated. Especially if this Jew has certain weight in the community, then if it's done publicly, then it's done he's doing it not to save his life, right? He's doing it to desecrate the holiness of the Torah.
Right.
So it's not just saving his life. It's a choice between Hilul Hashem, desecration of the holy name.
Next page.
Okay.
I
Lochin.
have a question.
Okay.
Anyway, the sparks in the food. A chicken always has that spark in it, right? The holy spark that gets ascended.
If it's slaughtered in a kosher way,
Only, right? But what happens when it's not slaughtered in the kosher way by a goy, like a Chinese guy in a restaurant?
then it becomes
What happens to that spark?
impure. Then this spark being anchored.
But goy did it. It's not a sin for him to eat chickens with a.
For goy, it's not a problem.
But what happens to the spark? Anchored?
Then this substance which we have in front of us now belongs to the impure klippos, because it's not allowed for us to eat.
Not for us, I'm saying, but like the spark itself for them. The spark was never a spark for them. They don't have a spark in their food. The spark was always in the chicken, technically.
They have no restrictions. They can derive the energy for they also have kind of job description and divine service,
Yeah.
seven commandments given to the Noah.
They killed the chicken.
But this spiritual role is more basic, more primitive, so to speak.
But that chicken always had a spark. That could get elevated by
They have no mission of elevating the sparks.
What happens to the spark?
Nothing.
Nothing.
This spark has nothing to do with their mission.
I understand.
Elevating the spark, purifying the world, that's the Jewish mission. The mission of other nations is maintaining the safety of the system in general. It's not about elevating, it's about basic existence of the world. If all the nations of the world do not behave according to the Creator's rules, they endangering the very existence of the world, like it was with the flood.
Yeah.
But elevating the sparks has to do with changing the world, infusing it with spirituality. That specifically Jewish mission has nothing to do with the Gentiles' spiritual work. So if the Gentile got the crazy ideas about changing this world in spiritual sense, then he has to think about the upgrade, which we call Giyur.
Yes.
Let's talk about this demon.
Oh.
That's good.
ולכן גם היצר הרע וכי המסע לדבורים האסורים הוא שד משדים נחרין, שהוא יצר הרע של אומייס העולם, shenafsheisehim mishalish klipis atmeis. Therefore, as the evil impulse, Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and the force that strains after forbidden things is a demon of non-Jewish demons, which is the evil impulse of the nations whose souls are derived from the 3 unclean klipos. Interesting sentence. The idea is that the lust for forbidden foods, for something which is against the Torah, is essentially a foreign thing for the Jewish soul. It's not something which naturally installed into our nature. It's normal for non-Jews, Gentiles. That's because these are the things which they are not restricted. Yeah. So for them, it's natural to desire them, to want them. But for the Jewish soul, it's something foreign and something very, very damageable, very dangerous. Let's continue. On the other hand, the evil impulse, the evil inclination, Yetzer Hara, and the craving force after permissible things to satisfy an appetite, who shade mishaden Yehudoim, is a demon of the Jewish demons. See, there are ethnics among demons also. No, of course not. We're talking about we use just these ethnical terms or religious terms, whatever you call it, to explain some spiritual ideas. We'll get to it. For it can be reverted to wholeness, as explained above. Nevertheless, before it has reverted to wholeness, it is sitra ochra and klipa. Let's instead of comma in this text, let's put a dot period here. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we just said that the desires and lusts for something forbidden is not natural for us. It's a foreign thing for Jewish soul. So then how is it possible for the Jew to have these desires? If it's something unnatural, then there is a necessity, just simply logically speaking, it must be some additional push, some additional energy should be applied to bring him to that border, right? Yeah. So indeed, it could be either conditions he grew up, let's say, or it could be the result of indulging himself, satisfying his Jewish Yetzer Hara, so to speak, misusing what is permissible. I mean, not prohibited, but using it just to satisfy his animal side. Right. You see, every act of this, every animalistic act, it's not, as we said, it's not only the lack of elevation. It's kind of descending into the depth of impurity. So every act throws little anchor into this mud of impure klippas. And the more he does so, the stronger his connection to these realms of complete impurity. And the more vulnerable he becomes to the influence of this other side. And so there is a limit to this, to his natural holiness, so to speak. So by doing so, he can bring himself to the complete involvement into this world of impurity under the influence of these non-Jewish demons, so to speak. And again, these terms are just to describe that this is the lust and craving for something which is, could cause spiritual damage, but it's fixable. This is not fixable. That's why we call use these terms, and because first is natural for us. It's very easy for us. Since it's permitted, we could be less careful about it. And this is something totally. By default we are distant from it, but we could get into that pit, so to speak.
And when you get to that pit, does it make sense that the urges are stronger than God?
Urges?
Like the impulse. Because you're saying Jews don't have the impulse for that stuff, but
it could be.
Once they get there, they go with a ferocity like not seen by a lot of things. Like if they go off, it's
it could
like
be, yes.
all the way lower than what
it could be.
Mm-hmm. Because they're not immune, like they don't have defense for it. Is that it?
It's much more complicated. Much more complicated.
And one question, I know we're about to read it, but it's from the top to the bottom part is if it's permissible,
yeah,
it's still at the bottom. It's saying there's still a trace of Sitra Achra in it, even after you do it the right way.
Let's get to it.
Okay.
וגם אחר כך, הרשיעו ממנו נשאר דבק בגוף, ליהס כי מכל מאכל ומשכינה שתקף דם הבשר מבשרי. And even after the tshuva, after elevating the spark, right? We're talking about the permissible food. A trace of it remains attached to the body. It doesn't purify him as a physical being. On the spiritual level, everything is beautiful. Those sparks are elevated, they drag along with them the other sparks. But we differentiated between calories and proteins and sparks. It's different levels, different entities.
Right.
So the sparks could be elevated if we're talking about the kosher food. But if this kosher food was eaten like an animal, in a way like an animal does,
It's still part of it.
so it was consumed, digested, absorbed while it was in the state of impurity. It became part of him literally, on the physical level. So the building bricks of his body were impure. The tshuva elevates the spark, the spiritual energy. But on physical level, it doesn't replace the cells of his body. The cells are built, and they build on the foundation of not so holy. So even after his tshuva, some trace of his mistake remains on the level of his body. Great, the mission accomplished on the spiritual level. But the traces of his mistake are saved on his on the physical level, in his body. ולכן צריך הגוף לכיבד הקבר, לנקויסי ולתארה מתומוסי שקיבל באנוס העולם הזה. ותענוגיו, מתומס קליפוס נגע ושדי מעודיה. That is why the body must undergo the purgatory, Господи. Did I pronounce it correctly at least?
Perfect.
Of the grave. Literally, Hibuda Kever, it's the pains in the grave. Essentially, that's the pain from the decay of the body, which, as we mentioned before, I believe we touched this topic already a little bit. The soul feels everything which happens to the body. So the decay is a very painful process for the soul. The decay of the body is very painful for the soul, and the pain. We call it pain, analogy to the physical pain, but it's something very uncomfortable feeling for the soul, which makes it feeling bad about those pleasures which he was running after while living in this world. In order to cleanse it and purify of its uncleanness, like when you clean something, right? Washing machine, especially using chemicals, it's something very, it's very harsh, but it's needed to clean. Which they had received from the enjoyments of mundane things and pleasures, which are derived from the uncleanness of the klipas noga and these Jewish demons. Elim kein mishaloi nene me'olam haze kol yomov kerabeinu HaKadosh. Only one who had derived no enjoyment from this world all his life, as was the case of our saintly master Rabbi Yehuda, is spared this. So that's why the bodies of tzaddikim are intact, remain intact, because they were above of this. There's a very touchy story about Alter Rebbe, the author of Tanya. Once his old friend, Rabbi Aaron from Karlin, I think, was visiting him for Shabbos. So they knew in advance that such a great person is coming, and the whole house was preparing. So the ladies were cooking for Shabbos, and the daughter asked permission also to participate in preparing the cholent. So she was given a mission to put salt in the cholent. So she put the salt, but the Rebbetzin forgot about it, and she also put salt, and very generously. So when it was served, it was so salty that Rabbi Aaron couldn't eat it. So Alter Rebbe was eating. So one version of the story says that he thought that maybe there is not enough salt, so he put even more salt in the guest's plate. But that probably already like apocryphal additions to the story. But the main thing is that he admitted that it's too salty. Then Alter Rebbe concentrated, and he felt, yeah, indeed. But initially he didn't feel. He told that while learning from their mutual master and teacher, Rabbi Magid is from Mezherich, he learned not to feel the taste of physical food. Yes, for the people of that scale, it's something secondary. Yeah. So this holiness, they remain, not just applies to their bodies. For them, body is something is a tool for the soul. But their bodies become also holy remain intact because they are not touched by that type of impurity, because they don't have any lusts and cravings. Okay, let's continue next time.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim.